Hi, Jeff and Devin coming to you from the Arc, where we are talking about comics for the week of February 19th, 2025. Um, First, I do want to point out that we had been covering some of the news with Diamond, and right now I know that Blood Moon has suspended all of their works at the moment.
hmm
I know that Dark Horse has laid people off and started downsizing in anticipation of expenditures.
Which finds I find interesting because they'd already done the move to Penguin.
And then additionally, they have announced that there are 30 entities that are interested in buying Diamond, but currently are under non disclosure agreements. And so, they can't really specify who's interested in it or what their plans with Diamond would be.
Well, I think the biggest problem that comes out of that is okay, there's a few things that I worry about there. First and foremost, Diamond is shedding publishers and toy makers and stuff like that just left and right now. I mean, these people are running for the hills and going to other distributors, and I don't know what kind of exclusivity like Lunar is demanding of them to go over there, because you look at most of them that go to Lunar, that are larger, they're not allowed to go anyplace else anymore. It seems like they have to cut ties with every other. It feels very early Diamond Monopoly type feel. Um, and but with them shedding all of this, sales possibility, how many of these offers are going to maintain any type of viability if there's just no revenue to be made because
Right.
there's nothing to sell? Or,
If everybody's under a contract with Penguin or Lunar, then who's
mm,
going to stick around for Diamond? And if you buy out Diamond and you have nobody left, then what do you really have?
yeah, and if you do get another company in there that, like for example, Lunar decided to open up a East Coast division, to try to help with shipping and stuff, you're, it's just going to put us right back in the same boat. Um, Diamond, don't get me wrong. It's For years we got gouged on the shipping, but they finally got that figured out like at one point last year, and it made a huge difference. But now I'm, looking at, like Lunar, and Lunar's doing the same thing Diamond One was before with gouging on the shipping. Um, and so it just feels like we're going from one possible bad situation to another. I mean, I do enjoy working with Penguin Random House because at least they got their head on pretty well straight, and they're fairly easy to deal with. But I just feel like
Well,
if Lunar, or if, like, for example, like one of your other big corporate comic companies bought up what remains of Diamond, what's it gonna turn into? Is it just gonna be the same crap, different year?
admittedly, Penguin Random House is Penguin and Random House have both been around for a long time. Then they merged together, and then they got bought out by the German company. So they've been in this for long enough that they understand how a lot of this works. Whereas Lunar didn't really come about until the COVID shutdown, and
Yeah.
DC was looking to get out of the diamond game.
But you have to remember, Lunar at the time, it's not that they just came into existence. This is basically corporate comics kicking it up a notch.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is that the timeline for them
Mm-hmm.
to figure everything out, they had been around, but then when 2020 came and people were jockeying for position to get their books out, Diamond shut down, and so DC said, we're gonna go to Lunar, and they started having to do some growth and change rapidly, and now with Diamond going under, they're having to change yet again, and they are probably
But they didn't really have to change that much on the initial one. To be quite honest, because we are talking a relatively large corporation at the point where they took over for DC. This was not a mom and pop comic shop that decided they were going to distribute for DC at this point. Um, so let's not make Lunar sound like they're going to be headed the right way with it, because there's a lot of problems I've actually got with Lunar specifically, where it just feels like old school Diamond all over again, and I worry that even if they don't go to the East Coast, if some other corporate comic store anywhere, you know, decides to pick up this thing and go into competition with Lunar, it's not going to help necessarily. What needs to happen really is you have to. It's going to take it has to be a good balance of being able to handle shipping in today's world where it's exceedingly expensive to ship things. And get a good handle on that, like for example, Penguin Random House has. Because let me tell you, Lunar hasn't. It turns into a nightmare with them on a regular basis, as far as like cost effectiveness and things like that. Especially where you have to you're forced into buying fewer products because their shipping is so high. But in buying fewer products, it reduces your discount rate. So you get a crappier discount rate. So now you're paying more shipping, and you got a crappy discount rate. So this is what we're getting forced into when you're dealing with people like Lunar. Whereas with IDW, Dark Horse, and Marvel over Penguin, over there it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're in the middle of a city or if you are the smallest comic book shop on the planet. You get this. Everybody gets the same discount and the same shipping. So, so that's where my concern comes in. Is we're going to be right back in the same boat again.
Gotcha. What if Penguin Random House bought out all the stuff for Diamond though?
As much as I would love that, I can't see that as a real viability. I mean, you're talking probably too small of potatoes for them to want to deal with, especially with a lot of those really small publishers.
Gotcha.
That was the beauty of Diamond back in the day, was that they were giving these publishers that were putting out like very very small print runs a place to advertise their stuff.
Right,
Like,
and to get it out there.
yeah, I mean, this is where you had your start offs with like Mirage Comics and stuff like that. It was how would have the Turtles gotten their real comic exposure outside of the comic book had it not been for
The fact that they had
they
a
had
way to
Diamond.
distribute.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of what I look at. There's upsides and downsides, but I'm worried the downsides are far outweighing at this point for the independent books in general.
Well, and with Blood Moon ceasing all activities,
Mm.
we're already starting to see some of that coming about.
Yeah.
So, but the silver lining, I guess, I'm looking at, is the fact that they said that this needs to be done by April 1, before, they have to do this,
Mm-hmm.
and then it's going to cease. And we're halfway through February now. So that's not too far away. And so, if nothing else, we're going to see where this is going to go before too long.
Yeah.
We're not going to be in this limbo for terribly long. We're going to be able to actually say, hey, I see where this is going, or such and such is happening,
Mm-hmm.
and now we know how to approach it, and we can come up with a game plan. But for right now, the whole not knowing is the greatest obstacle.
Well, and it's not really as much of an obstacle as much as it's disappointing to not be able to, carry things the same way I used to. Um, Image is a good example of that. I mean, for the next X amount of months, I'm okay because I was able to say, well, Diamond gave me this discount, so they went ahead and honored it. However, as soon as that time's over, because of the volume that we do out of the store, I'm going to drop down to a much lower discount when it comes to image. So I'm going to have to adjust how I order for them too, and this isn't going to affect any of your medium to large stores. Anything in the city, this is they don't.
They're
They're not
gonna
even
operate
gonna.
at a
They're
scale
not.
that
Yeah, they're not even gonna notice this. Um, any store that is dealing in the smaller quantity like ourselves, we're gonna get railed on this one when it comes to DC Image, other independents. Basically, if we can't get it through Penguin Random House, um, we're going to be unable to carry most of it. Because when you mix in the price of shipping and a crappy distribution level for being a small store, makes it impossible to carry it, and honestly it gets to the point where you start looking at it and makes you not want to anyway, because if they're going to treat the salt of the earth stores that are keeping this kind of going out in America this way, why should I care about keeping them in business?
fair to say.
So yeah, it's definitely a double edged sword on this one.
So that's where we are at the moment with the diamond thing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's more question marks than answers at the moment.
Well, not all, and it's not just on what's happening with Diamond, just what's going to happen overall.
Overall, right.
Yeah.
So that said, what did you read this week?
Not a whole lot. I did take a look through the new Superman, the Superman 22, I think it is. Um, and I mean, they're marching in time, kind of alongside. Because Doomsday was introduced, what was it, like Man of Steel 18 or 19 or something like that, I think it was. But they reintroduced him as the oh god, the time guy,
Cronus?
time tripper or something like that, I think it is. But
Okay.
it's him and Superman that basically that lived to the end of all
Okay.
type thing, and reveals to be Doomsday this time, and so basically it's kind of a start of a story that it seems like what's happening at this point is basically Doomsday's. There's an attempt to garner Doomsday as a weapon and basically use him as such, and so you got in 22 you got the first time that you got like Superman, Supergirl working, Superwoman working together to try to protect Doomsday from being taken. Number one, because they got him in kind of like a cryo type situation because if you kill him, he just comes back with immunity to what he died to, so on and so
Right.
forth. The inevitable, unending deaths of Doomsday scenario, um, and eventually you do see Superman and Doomsday fighting side by side, trying to just basically keep it from going the wrong way. And at the end of it, you do end up with him showing up in his much later form at the end of from the end of the universe.
Doomsday?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, as the I want to say it's Time Tripper or something like
Hmm.
that. Um, and basically, and this is kind of it seems like it's the start of kind of the larger arc that they started building with that one shot, the Doomsday in Hell, where they showed him basically trying to beat down the gates of hell. So
Interesting.
yeah, which was last year, is a one shot in oh god, what? it wasn't even that late in the year. It was like October or something like that. Like they've been sitting on this one for a while, I think.
Well, and I can appreciate that because anymore, if if they want to tell a story and they want to lead into it, their lead in and maybe one or two issues. Where it used to
Yeah.
be, you would have a slow burn over the course of a year,
Hmm.
and then people felt like it was really actually building up and happening in real time.
Yeah. Well, and with the very little that I really do know about Superman and the current storyline stuff like that, it wasn't a bad jumping in point. To be quite honest, it was. There was a couple places that did discuss, some editor notes, um, things like that, where there could be some useful information, but it didn't. It wasn't like jumping back to the '90s or anything like that.
Right, where you had
Um,
to read, five different books just to keep up with.
or going back just to the just funeral for a friend or anything. I think the furthest back was the oh crap, that big fight they had with Doomsday, yeah, 5-10 years ago or whatever it was. There was some discussion about that, and then discussion about this lead in with the one shot, and then I think, like I said, I want to say it was like 18 or 19 of this run where they introduced him, and let him actually drop the cowl, um, and expose himself as Doomsday at the end of time.
Huh.
So,
And he talked all normal and what have you. It wasn't like,
I mean, they put a little bit of the uneasy angular
balloons.
to the well, not to the balloons, but to the characters themselves a lot of times,
Okay.
that it's not so far gone that you are seeing it as a broken language, as much as.
It wasn't like talking to Bizarro.
Yeah, exactly. It's intelligent speech, but it's probably being done from a very guttural or place of extreme old age at that point. To be
Right.
quite honest. So, but
I know
no,
that feeling too.
it wasn't bad. I would suggest the one shot as a good starting point for it. Um, and then go back a couple issues. Like I said, right around 1819.
But it's
Start that.
accessible. It's
Oh
not
god,
intimidating.
it's super easy to find. Not This is not big dollar items to be able to catch up on the current storyline.
Cool.
And like I said, it's got my curiosity peaked. I'll probably read it just to see what happens. But normally Superman's not really my thing, so we'll have to see.
Fair enough. Well, this week I Weapon X-Men 1 came out, and it's a number one, and I figured I'd, crack this open and see if it was good. We right on the cover, Alex Ross cover, and it looks beautiful. I had to chuckle that you have five characters on the cover, and then right above where it says Weapon X-Men, it says Wolverine, Deadpool, Cable, and then it's like then you have these two other people, and it's like, well, aren't they worth pointing out?
Yeah,
And the answer is no. Uh,
yeah,
anyway, we start off with Wolverine kicking back and having a drink, and ultimately someone's trying to kill him. Shock among shocks, and blah blah blah. They don't finish the job, and then Cable starts rounding up people to form this team for this mission that he's not really disclosing a lot of information on. But we get Wolverine, Deadpool, Cable, and then we get Thunderbird back in his original costume because they once they resurrected him on
yeah,
Kuroka, he actually got his own costume, which they actually consulted with people and made it authentic. Like they had it be turquoise because in the Apache way of life,
yeah.
turquoise had a significance, and so there was a significance of the coloring and the design and what have you. And there was a lot of thought put into this costume, and immediately now they've moved on from it and went back to the old recognizable costume,
Of course.
of course. And then Chamber from Generation X history. it felt disjointed. It didn't really feel like there was a rhyme or reason behind the people that he was recruiting. He wasn't very forthcoming with where they were going or what they were doing or why
Mm-hmm.
it had to be these people. Um, Deadpool was throwing out jokes a mile a minute, and the writer is Joe Casey, who had always been a strong writer in my opinion. But honestly, this just felt disjointed, and I didn't really understand. I felt like it wasn't really thought out.
Yeah.
Um, there were a couple of jokes that Deadpool threw out that I kind of chuckled at. I thought it was funny, especially when he came to naming the team. He's like, nobody would come up with a name like this. Not Xavier, not
Mm-hmm.
Claremont, not Morrison, or even that
Nice.
Hickman guy.
Nice.
And so there were fourth wall breaks, and nods to the movie.
Yeah.
But outside of that, there wasn't much in the way of humor. There's a betrayal on the team, and it just felt like we were just kind of going through motions. There didn't really
Yeah.
feel
They're probably it's all set up for yeah.
well, and it's under the One World Under Doom tagline, so
Yeah.
it'll tie into that somehow. And ultimately, this is a mini series, so it's not going to be ongoing. This is more of a cash grab, and it reads as such.
Yeah.
I didn't care for it. I didn't care for the art. The artist was Crisscross. It was
Like the band from the
Jump
90s.
Jump. No,
Yeah.
this is with a C, not a K.
Okay.
But the art style was it really felt hard to get immersed into it because the art was bad. Like the
Yeah.
way they drew muscles, people running, it looked very cartoony. Their legs, like one leg would be out way in front and
Mm-hmm.
one way behind, and it looked like they were like doing strides
Yeah.
in a cartoon. Um, it
Which
was
fits in some places, but not necessarily here. Yeah.
right. So between the art and the writing, it just really didn't do much for me. And with a $5 price tag,
Yeah.
I, if you're really into these characters and you feel it's going to pay off, maybe picking it up. I'm picking it up because it has Chamber. If Chamber wasn't on this, I wouldn't
Mhm.
have bothered picking it up.
Well, and those price tags is kind of going back to exactly what I was talking about before. Is you start mixing these increases in prices with all the stuff I was talking about. It's gonna it the comic community is gonna hurt from this. I think.
Yeah,
In general, it's gonna. I think your mainstreams are going to be given a lot more power than they probably deserve. Especially your Marvel under the big Disney umbrella and stuff like that because they've got obviously the easiest distribution.
right.
So
And right now, the momentum is behind them. If you go out to anyone and you ask them to name off, a comic book or a comic book character, the general public is going to be able to go, Marvel and then DC,
mm,
and maybe you'll have a random person say like
image.
Spawn or Image,
Mm-hmm.
but outside of that, there's a hierarchy, and everybody at the bottom of the chain
Yeah.
is going to be hurting.
Yeah. Well, especially the ones that are running with
Lunar.
characters that need
Uh,
built specifically, like for like Dynamite dropping stuff like Zootopia and Powerpuff Girls and stuff like that. They're gonna be fine
right.
because these are recognizable books. These covers are gonna be seen. They're gonna get picked up off the shelf. They're gonna be able to stagger along fairly easily with that. Now, you look at stuff like, for example, one of my favorite series recently, the Gromit series. How much traction is that going to end up really getting in today's world? A story like that where you need to do the build, especially where you've got to limit purchasing power.
Right. Well, and when you look at it, um, we don't know what previews will look like, or
Mm-hmm.
how upcoming comics are going to be marketed. And if it's not going to be marketed well, you can kiss a lot of the harder sales, the art books, or the true life stories, or just the niche comics.
Yeah.
Those are going to be a harder sell now.
Yep, your cult classics are going to continue to do fine. Your 2000 ADs, heavy metal, stuff like that. Like I said, your known characters are going to continue to do fine. Anytime you're trying to introduce something new, you're gonna be pushed up against a wall.
Well, and if you went to a concert and you went to see Motley Crue, or something like that, and they said, okay, we're gonna play all of our classic hits. Everybody's gonna be just rocking out. And if they take a moment, and they say, all right, let's do our new song. You're gonna see people leave and go to the concession stand or the
Mm-hmm.
bathroom at that point. They don't want that stuff. Not as many people are going to be very forthcoming for new material.
Well, yeah, and there's been just book after book I can name that without this outlet would have suffered. 8 billion genies, stray dogs,
Beneath the trees.
beneath the trees. Lucky Devils is a new one that's just coming out, and it's not getting nearly the traction because it doesn't have the backing that like 8 billion genies had, because it's almost the same type feel. Um, but I mean, you have all of this stuff. Ice Cream Man probably would have never really caught on and been a long ongoing series along with Saga without this type of stuff.
Right.
So yeah, I'm I'm hopeful, but not planning on it going well.
We're going to have some growing pains, and I think that we're going to basically be starting over again as an industry.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you're going to have your tent poles, you're going to have your Marvel, your DC, and your licensed characters supporting things. And as the market recovers and shifts to the new world that is establishing,
Yeah,
once they start to get comfortable in that position, then they can start to branch out and take chances with the smaller books and the smaller publishers. And maybe 5 years we'll start building it back up again. But we'll probably see a little bit of entropy for the time being, and
well, yeah,
entropy, excuse me.
yeah. Well, like I said, we'll have to see where she plays at that point. So,
But
but yeah,
in the meantime, stick around. Any news that we get, we'll relay to you. And by all means, again, vote with your wallet. It will be heard. Trust me. And with that, I offer you a good night.